For 150 years, Children's National Hospital has provided exceptional care and groundbreaking research. Please donate today to give children and healthcare heroes a reason to believe this holiday season. Visit childrensnational.org/holiday.
Right Night is a talk show with published authors, writers, and content creators discussing both the creative and technical sides of writing, as well as the industry surrounding it, from novels to screenplays to comics and more. And now, here's your host, author Travis I. Sivart.
Well, thank you, Cogsy, for that introduction, and welcome to Right Night. It is April 25th, birthday of my better half, which is my left, and Andrea. I am Travis Sivart. I am the host, and I am the author of, classics such as my epic fantasy, Harbinger, Book 1 of Downfall series. Book 2 will be started working on probably this August. It is 4:25. Thank you, Aaron. And speaking of Aaron, let's move our introductions up to the upper right-hand corner of the screen to Aaron Kennedy. Who are you? Why are you at my house?
Hi, I'm Aaron Kennedy. I'm a co-owner of Clouder Consultants, author of Persona Non Grata, space pulp thing. I've been a technical writer for about 25 years. That's about it.
So, real quick, before I introduce the next person or they introduce themselves, how long till book 2 of Persona Non Grata?
Currently in the works. I'm about 65% done with it at the moment.
Okay, so what is your projection of end date? 2 years? 2 months?
I figure I'd like to have it out by Christmas.
Excellent.
Nice.
I know a good editor I'll recommend to you if you're ready. Speaking of good editors, instead I'd rather talk about great editors. Tara, would you care to introduce yourself, please?
Hey, I'm Tara Moeller, and I am the Dreamer-in-Chief of Dreampunk Press, a small indie publisher based out of Norfolk, Virginia. Our latest big publication is Waiting for Normal by Zara Johns, but definitely check out the website, dreampunkpress.com, because we have some freebies available right now while you're stuck in the house having to read. So.
There you go. And speaking of people who are stuck in the house looking for things to do, Tempe?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, I'm Tempe Wade. I'm the author of the Timely Revolution book series, a Revolutionary War historical fantasy series. Excuse me. And writer of several other things that I'm working on.
There we go. And then last but not least, speaking of fantasies, Michael, being the fantasy of so many of us, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Thompson. I am an independent author and illustrator of superhero books, portal fantasy books, and folkloric fantasy books. And my folkloric fantasy book is Winslow Hoffner's Incredible Encounters, folkloric fantasy in the high seas, cryptid sea monsters, awesome storytelling goodness. And this I just recently released in ebook form, and I'm working on the audiobook in my own voice, hopefully coming out very soon, maybe next month.
What with him reading it in other people's voices? I've seen a live reading. He definitely does other voices, and it's worth it. I am, before we get into the topic, which tonight's topics, for the creative hour, the first hour, we're going to talk about If I Knew Then. And for the second hour, we're going to talk about Who's in Charge. So the second hour being the technical hour. By the way, if you're listening to this live, don't forget you can also catch us on podcast on, about a half dozen to a dozen different places. So you can find Right Night and Travis Tavern Talk there. If you're not listening to this live, you're listening to us on one of that podcast. If you want to catch Right Night live, be able to comment and chat with us real time, just find us on twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk. Let me also encourage each and every one of you, check out these guys as Aaron posts the links to each of them. Go to their websites, follow them on your favorite social media. Who is that? Spacey Tracy, thank you for that subscription. She also said hello earlier. Always a delight to see Tracy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So there's that for you. Oh, look at that. By the way, for those of you, I only say this because neither of them mind. Spacey Tracy right there is Michael's mother, and what a supportive damn parent. And Mike being a decent damn human being. Good job, Tracy. So,
Momager, that's right.
Okay. I don't even... You guys get to keep me on track tonight once we get to the topics. What was I talking about? I know I wanted to mention my children's book I just published. Was there something else? Did I actually give a direction of where I was babbling towards?
Towards our topic.
No, I had something
What's everyone
before the
reading?
topic. Oh, I ordered postcards, as I mentioned to you guys, and I also ordered business cards with that same 5 bookmark design. So it's just those bookmarks on the business card. So we've got that coming, and I do have Travis Tavern Talk business cards over there. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I My Puppy's a Werewolf is published. That's out there.
Congratulations. My mom bought it, by the way.
Oh, did she?
Aw.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have ordered copies for myself. I don't have a copy of like 3 or 4 of my different books. That's what I wanted to say. I held up a book. Michael held up a book. Tara, Tempe, do you have one of your books right there, please?
Yeah.
Tara, do you have one of your books right there?
No.
Hold on.
I can introduce you to my mother, though.
Momager.
Is it the chair or the plant?
It's the it's the urn behind me.
Very good. Okay,
Find it.
very good. This is one of Tara's books right here. I encourage each of our authors to hold up a book, and I've mocked Aaron for not having a copy on hand because he sold all of his. But yeah, the visual references always help. That's something to keep in mind with marketing. Always keep an image on your phone. Always keep an image on your computer. Always keep a book on hand if you're doing any kind of video interview, including right night here where we hang out regularly. I want to say hello to Word. I remember what else I wanted. For our viewers, what are you guys reading right now? Or writing? Let us know in chat. We're not necessarily going to list it all on air, but we're very interested in hearing. By the way, where it says, if I knew now, get copies of your own books. Always good advice. And order more when they sell out, says Aaron.
So true.
It is. Other than that, no news from the agent yet. I did send a follow-up going, hey, just want to make sure you got the documents. Haven't heard anything back from that. Other than that,
I mean, there is a plague going on.
whatever.
Right.
Plague schmeg. I always think of Men in Black when I talk about the plague. Which, by the way, for anybody listening is 10 years from now, this being April 2020, we are in the midst of COVID-19, the coronavirus, whatever the future will call it as a historic reference. That's what we're doing right now. But I always think the Men in Black, Part 1, where Will Smith is like, oh, there's an enemy fleet about to kill us all. And what's his name? What's his name, Aaron? Anybody?
Tommy Lee Jones.
Thank you.
Agent K.
Agent K says, kid, there's always a doomsday device or an alien race about to blow up the planet. And that's a true story. It's, just go turn...
You want to feel old, Travis? Men in Black came out in 1997.
Yeah. The first one?
Yeah.
Wow.
There we go. Okay. Anybody else got any awesome announcements? My other book is with Tara right now as my editor. And she's got a few ahead of that one. And I want to do some quick changes on that anyway.
So, just a quick programming note. If anybody wants to follow my Facebook page at Tempe W. Wade, next Wednesday at 8 o'clock, I've got some other writers coming on, different from the group that's here. And we're going to be chatting. Basically, we're just chatting because we're bored. And we'll be throwing out our books out there for anybody who wants to hear what we've got to offer as well. But Tempe W. Wade at Facebook, and we're going to do a Facebook Live Zoom session. If everything goes right and all the technical things work out, we'll do that at 8 o'clock. So
Very good. Eastern.
And
So
I,
keep...
Eastern
Go
time.
ahead.
Yep. And I have one. May 3rd on Facebook, starting at 10 a.m., is Paranormal Con. And I will be on there actually interviewing a couple of the Dream Punk Press authors about their ghost stories. So if you're into ghost stories and you want to find out a little bit about where those who write about ghosts find their inspiration or other supernatural things, hey, tune in. They're going to be posting later this week the kind of a schedule it's going to be a loose schedule but it's it's on Facebook Live, so pretty easy to find it, follow along a little bit, and check it out. We can't have cons in person now, so this is an attempt to fill that gap. So paranormal-con.
I'm going to check that out.
That's awesome. Now, before we go to the topic, Tara, did you know I've been a paranormal investigator for over 30 years and have done more than one exorcism?
Ooh.
Wow.
True story.
Well, you need to, I need to interview you then, too.
That's a story for another night, though. We'll worry about that later. Let's get on to the topic. If I knew then. So, tonight's topics are really fun topics in my mind because they're very open-ended topics. And when I put them in our little private group chat with these guys here, one or two of them went, well, what do you mean by that? And I went, that's a personal distinction. And I didn't say anything else. And they're like, okay. Or maybe it was, okay. I don't know. It's hard to... This is why punctuation is important. Ask your editor. So I've got these huge open topics for the Creative Hour, If I Knew Then. And who had some thoughts? Let me just go to Tara, because Tara's got a new microphone. I'm definitely going to give her some focus tonight, because we can hear her so much better, and I'm happy about it. Tara, when you heard the topic, If I Knew Then, what came to your mind? She's
job stuff.
Job stuff. What kind of job?
Job stuff. And just, a little bit of background for me, or rather about me. I've also been a technical editor for about the same amount of time that Aaron has been a technical writer, although I've never edited his technical writing.
Now the day's still young.
And part of it is, pardon?
I said the day is still young.
Yeah.
She may have, actually.
I may have and not known it, yes. But I think even the whole never again volunteer yourself. If I knew then what I know now about when you see a problem that you know the solution to, and you offer that solution, just remember you're going to be the one to apply that solution. And that's in anything. So that's because something except more hard work. Yep.
Sure. Word says that sounded like a challenge. By the way, I want to do a quick clarification. Aaron, where were you stationed? Here in Virginia?
Camp Pendleton the first time, Quantico the second time. So from 1999 through end of 2002, I was on Quantico.
Any overlap, Tara?
Pardon?
Any overlap with those dates? You ever work at Quantico?
Oh, heck no. I was no. Well, I mean, I work there now, but not while I was active.
Not in those years.
I got out in 97, so.
Well, were you a technical editor in 99 at Quantico?
No.
Okay. So no overlap with Aaron and possibility of actually having edited his work.
I don't believe so.
Just checking. It's a small world, and sometimes it gets smaller. And then we catch a plague and all stay home, and it seems so big out there. Okay.
We're supposed to stay home?
Not according to the people at Walmart. Okay, so Tara, this advice of yours with the, if you volunteer, you get to implement it. How has that happened in your writing? And if you can't think of something, I can point out stuff.
The first time I did so I published my first book in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And in the an endeavor. In order to get reviews, you do book swaps. And I learned the hard way that that's not always a good idea.
Why?
Because the book that I got to review,
yes.
there's, self-publishing is good. It allows authors to put stories out that might not normally, make it through an agent and an editor and through the publishing house. They want to publish the same stuff, a little different, but a lot of the same stuff. This is a success. They want to continue that. So if an author has something a little bit smaller, a little bit different, or for a slightly smaller audience, it's hard. But you got to have somebody edit it. The first book, and I got 2 pages in it, and I could not read it, and I was like, what do I do? Because this person had, we'd agreed to do a book swap. There was absolutely no way I was going to be able to do a good review on it. Yeah. So, again, you know what you're doing before you, do your research a little bit before you offer to do something.
With book swaps, research the person you offered a book swap with. That's yes. The answer to that. By the way, I'm curious, what did you do? I'm sure it was tactful. You are full of tact.
Yes. I, because we had swapped via emails, the stuff, and I sent an email back that said that it really was not, I had misunderstood the type of book. It really isn't something that I felt that I could actually could read and review and actually do it justice. And that, she did not have to read and review my book because I was not going to be able to do hers. And she just kind of, well, what did you think? And I'm like, well, I'm having trouble getting into it because it's not the type of book that I would read. So I kind of stuck to that line because I didn't know how to, at the time yet, to navigate telling somebody that they needed an editor. Because I didn't want it to come across that I was fishing for work.
That's reasonable. It's it's never easy giving bad news, and as writers, we need that bad news once in a while. But here's something else I'll tell you. In 2012, self-publishing was a bit of a dirty word because you had a lot of exactly that. People would just publish things with the crappiest cover and no editing, and they didn't even bother to go through their own rough draft. So you get essentially somebody's rough draft. And however good the concept is, it definitely needed work. So world has changed. Self-editing has gotten better because people realize to sell shit, you have to do the full work. Okay, so what about you, Tempe? What do you think of when you heard the topic, If I Knew Then?
Mine goes back to the marketing. If I'd known marketing was going to be such a beast, I think I would have approached it a little bit differently. When you're writing it, that's just not even on your mind. You're just writing. You want to get it out there. I think I probably would have scheduled more conventions as the book came out instead of sticking to the local ones, just to kind of get my name out there a little bit more. That was something I didn't realize I was going to have to do so much more of. So that's a big part of it. You don't realize that when you write the book. You still got to sell the book, if you want to make a living.
Yeah. So are you scheduling them now?
I will be once things open up because, of course, the convention scene has basically shut down. I have started doing more online stuff. I did a book reading, which I posted on Instagram on the Facebook page. Mm-hmm. I went down to Colonial Williamsburg. I did a very short little video that I pieced together because I got sick just as soon as I got down there with my asthma. But I did show a couple of the buildings that were used in the book and told a little bit about it. So I'm trying to do more online marketing stuff. Yeah, trying to get some of that stuff out there. So, and I did do some still shots, and I posted those on Instagram. I'm like, hey, just to, because people like to have a visual reference when they're reading something, in their mind. And especially with Colonial Williamsburg, it's easy to go down there and snap a few shots of something and put it up on Instagram. So
very cool. And I will remind you of this, though 2020 might be kind of shot when it comes to conventions, though maybe the fall ones will happen, maybe they won't. Start looking for 2021 conventions and contact them now, because nobody else is thinking to do it. So, dropping that intro letter, just like if you're approaching an agent or whatever, and I think Mike might, or Tara might be more knowledgeable in that arena than me, because I am totally a bum when it comes to those sort of things. Look at it now.
This holiday season, we all wish for hope and healing. Children and families who spend their holidays at the hospital deserve a reason to believe in first steps, in giggles, high fives, and hugs. For 150 years, Children's National Hospital has provided world-class care and groundbreaking research. Please donate today to help patients and healthcare heroes this holiday season. Visit childrensnational.org/holiday. That's childrensnational.org/holiday.
At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu.
I already have 2 booked for next year, so
Very cool.
I'm just, as they start opening up, I'm looking at them.
Which ones are they?
More and more. I've put in for MorrisCon to do a guest. I'm not sure I'm actually going to set up a table there, but I will be there. And RavenCon, I'm going as a guest. I'm not doing a table. I'm going to be doing a signing table, because I'm only going to be there one day for the weekend instead of the entire weekend, because they're moving actually from Williamsburg to Richmond next year. So.
Okay. And for anybody listening or viewing, MorrisCon is generally in January in Williamsburg, Virginia, and RavenCon is generally June, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in April. Yeah, they're spelled the same. April in Richmond, Virginia. Okay, what about you, Michael? What do you think of when you heard "If I Knew Then"?
I thought of what I would tell the younger me if I were to time travel back and speak to 13-year-old Mike starting out.
And how many years would you have to travel back to get to 13-year-old Mike?
13. And believe it or not, I know I have a baby face. But I think that I guess scheduling is probably an important thing to remind the young me of, to make time for all aspects of the business. Because I very much, especially at the beginning, I was very much in the production mode, and then later on in my career, I would go production, then marketing, and then back to production, and it was very one after the other, and I need to, and it's still something I'm trying to implement, where I kind of make time for all aspects of the business. So I'm trying to have a day for illustration, the whole middle of the week for writing, and then the end for events and marketing and stuff. So that's probably something. And and I've gone back and forth on whether to discuss with young me the concept of anchor series and the importance of that, to have something established. But I learned so much across all of the books that I've applied to the next book. So I don't know. I think we all learn things in the order that we're meant to learn them, and at the time that they would help us the most.
I think that's reasonable, Michael, because I also have thought back, when I tell me about Anchor series. On the other hand, the way I did it, the eclectic, haphazard, do all the things, I've learned enough now. If I pretend the 13 years from now, Travis came back and talked to me now, they would go, here's when you do your Anchor series. You've done all the things. You've had your learning curve. Now put that shit to work. So maybe that's your advice to your now's your Anchor series, Michael.
Yeah, Mike 30 seconds from now.
And by the way, when it comes
You're
down...
on the right track.
when it comes down to scheduling, also keep in mind, if you're putting a heavy schedule on yourself, schedule in downtime. Schedule that time where, I'm not saying you can't sit down and write during your downtime, but allow yourself a day where you do minimal or even nothing for the work side of things.
Yeah.
Tempe?
Yeah, that's something I would definitely go back and do differently, because like the first 6 books in this series, I blew through those in 6 months. I wrote those in 6 months, and those 6 months are a complete blur for me. I didn't take a day off. I didn't take time off. Every night I was there for 6 or 7 hours just typing away, and I wish I had slowed down a little bit and kind of, taken a break and taken a breather and relaxed a little bit. So
it's important. It's great to dig in and do all the things, do the work, but on the other hand, it's important not to burn yourself out. And when you get old enough, which might be by the time you're 19, might be the time you're 89, you'll figure out you do need to have time off. I'll let you do what I figured out. Aaron, if I knew then.
My mind immediately went to kind of the business side of things, and I was like, okay, how am I going to limit what I'm investing in this to the appropriate areas, whether it's time or money. For your first book, you don't need a website necessarily. Amazon's providing that. Facebook gives you free options. Where can I trim that fat so that the book is profitable on the one side, or on the investment side where Tempe just talked about it. Okay, what kind of time investment am I putting into this to where I'm getting reward out of it? I probably write about an hour a day in general, whether it's on the PhD studies, my military articles, or just pursuing something else. I'm trying to trim back on a lot of the social media side posts because it's non-productive writing. It's interactions, it's figuring out how people are going to respond in a post-law world where you can't understand intent based on just the written word. But the feedback that you get from that, the return on investment is just not the same as if you're actually writing down articles or papers or book.
What do you think about the investment of keeping extra copies of your book on hand at all times?
Well, believe it or not, I tried ordering a few, but friggin' the publisher is friggin' stricken with Corona at the moment. But yes, I kept a dozen on there, and I kind of just burned through them. And then I was like, I'm not really worried about it at the moment. I'll order another dozen of them. So when book 2 comes out, and then it probably would have been worthwhile. But I sell far more via ebook than I do physical copy, and if somebody wants a physical copy, they're ordering it through Amazon anyway.
Here's what I'm going to suggest, and you guys feel free to differ on this or agree with this, however it is. Keep a couple of your books in your car. Maybe that's 2, maybe that's 5. If you have multiple books, maybe it's 2 of the biggest ones, the best ones, the ones you like best. And the reason I say that is there are times I go to my day job and I mention my writing, and they're like, oh, do you have any? They are not going to Amazon after work. But people impulse buy shit all the time. And having 1 in your car or 3 in your car, generally, because if one person buys one, somebody else is probably going to buy one too. It's just, we've got a herd mentality in that way. What do you guys think? Reasonable or silly?
I think that is reasonable.
Yeah.
It's for guys like Michael who can friggin' pitch. I think that's extremely reasonable. For guys like me and probably you, Travis, we're more likely to just, here, read it, write a review or something, and we're just going to hand it away without friggin' taking $15-20 from somebody. Yeah. Now, if we're at a con or something, hell yeah.
I know when I had some proof copies in my car, and when the first book came out, I gave it. It was a lady at the post office. She always takes care of me when I'm shipping prop stuff. And I'm like, and I told her what I was doing, and I said, here's a proof copy. It's got the mistakes and stuff in it if you want to take a look at it. She stopped me at the post office last week. She'd just gotten around to reading it because she'd been so busy. She was like, I want the other 3. Yeah, she's like, here's money. Bring me the other 3, like right now.
Nice.
And so I came home and picked them up and took them back over to her. So yeah, I made a sale off of a proof copy that would have probably ended up in the trash can anyway.
That's good.
So it sounds like it can't hurt.
No, not at all.
And that's part of the marketing. And I wasn't just making fun of Aaron for not having a copy. I mean, that's bonus. Something I want to point out to you guys here is John mentioned we're hoping to run the William and Mary Con first week of October. And I asked him if he needs guests because I know a few people. So...
No, it's been a few people.
I know good writers, too. And that's how I lost all my co-hosts. Also, keep in mind, guys, just because I'm asking Aaron or Tempe the question doesn't mean everybody, like Tempe threw a little finger in there. I got something to say. Feel free. It's a conversation, not an interview. So don't hesitate to jump in, throw your 2 cents in like I do at the end once they've given their thoughts. Even if you're interrupting me or whatever. It's meant to build on here. And my thoughts of, if I knew then, after hearing all your guys' thoughts, I'm like, you know what? What about our characters when we're writing a book? At the end of the book, or movie, or story, you want to know the character that you love so much throughout the book has learned something. They've moved forward. They've gotten something out of their experiences. So having if I knew then moments for your characters within the books allows your readers to see, here's this thing, here's what I got out of it. And maybe even if you didn't telegraph it well enough during the book, especially that B subplot, which is usually that personal character arc. They're like, that's a romance subject. Calm down. It could be something besides romance, which in my books it almost always is. I don't like doing a romance subplot. This is no indication to folks like Tempe that it's a large part of the series. So yeah, doing that recap of this is what I went through, this is what I walked away from if I had known now what I knew then. So we've covered business side, personal experiences, covered a lot here. Is there any other thoughts now that we've all heard each other's thoughts that somebody wants to build on?
I got a little bit of feedback in regards to Tara's comments about friggin' the swaps and things like that. Oh, God. I believe all of us have beta readers of some type, whether it's friends, momagers, roommates.
Editors.
What? Or the cats.
Kitty.
No, but the direct swaps versus the indirect swaps, and it's one of the things that I ran into, and I used Goodreads to kind of find beta readers and stuff like that. And it's an open community, and I'm not judging the books, but the polish behind the book that you give. Don't hand them an alpha read to beta read. If it's the first draft, realize that you're not necessarily getting there yet. You got to run it through your own personal editing process at least once so that you don't end up getting bad news from somebody else. One of the big things I had to say was, hey, you're hitting repetitive, not necessarily phrasing, but cadences and things like that, and it becomes a distraction for the book. Whereas, oh, okay, here's the story. Or I did it for a couple British guys, and American English versus British English is just different enough to where I'm like, what the hell are they talking about with this? There's no explanation at the beginning or to kind of get the feel for it. And I'm sure I had just as many problems, but be aware of it. You're making a product at that point.
Yeah.
But the other thing I liked was she said she was doing direct swaps. I've discovered don't ever do a direct swap.
I agree.
Do an indirect swap if at all possible, where I'd hand Travis my book, Travis would hand Tara his, and so on and so forth, so that you can be as brutally honest as is necessary.
Interesting.
Now, I have a question with regards to that. How do each of you handle that if you're at a table and another writer comes up and says, "Hey, you want to swap books? I'll do a review for you," and it's not something you really what they are writing is not something that really interests you. How do you guys handle that, Travis?
My first thought is, for me, getting another author's book is like getting a t-shirt at the place you go visit. I love to get another author's book, even if I don't want to read it, just because one more person has their book. If they specifically mention reviews, I automatically go into my shuck and jive mode of, I have a stack of books. I don't know when I get to it. And I'm really bad at doing that sort of thing. So if you're looking just for a review, I warn you that it might not happen. But on the other hand, if you're just wanting to trade a book, I am all for it. And if I get around to it, I will. And that's what I mean by shuck and jive. Because quite often I get people coming to me going, read my stuff. And I'm like, great, what have you read of mine? Which this was not my first reaction.
Yeah.
My first reaction was to be nice and do that and get nothing out of it, which is what Tara's opening statements made me think of is, oh, how about I just offer to be screwed and do work for you and you're not doing... I get nothing. What about you guys? How do you handle it? By the way, I'm sorry, I'm going to read a comment here. Word says, I'd laugh like a demented person and cover them in books. Okay.
Yeah, asking which one is always a good like, which one do you want to? And it just kind of like, you get that deer in the headlight looks from them, and they kind of back away very slowly. And
Go ahead. Yeah.
What editing phase are you in at the moment? Huh? Yeah, because if you go, I'm at alpha, I'm at beta, I'm polished. If they can give a response of, okay, they've actually invested a little bit of work in this, sure. Whereas if they go, huh, what?
Yeah.
No.
Hey, run it through an editor before you get there. That way, I give you an honest, nice feedback.
Well, Aaron, what she's talking about at a convention, that person is walking up with a printed book in their hand already.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
if they're giving me free stuff, I'll take the free stuff.
Well, they want to trade one of yours for theirs. The trap is write a review. That's where the trap comes in.
Yeah.
Oh, it's unethical. To swap reviews with because there's an inherent expectation of getting positive back.
Right.
Because are you the first person to review it and you do good? Now they've got an ethical dilemma. I just didn't like his book, or vice versa. I'm all for the friggin' compliment sandwich, but you don't want to put yourself in that position. But if they say, oh, friggin', they bring you a printed copy of their book. Oh, do me a favor. Hey, write your email in it. I'll send you an electronic copy of my book. Friggin', tell me what you think. And it'll come from my personal email. Oh, okay. That way, one, they don't get a hard copy because an electronic copy is free for us. They gave us a book, and they go, hey, and just to give you a heads up, I do have a stack of things because friggin' doctoral and blah, blah, blah. It may take a while, but I'll get you the copy first. Shuck and jive.
And I know, Michael, you have something to say here, but I remember the first time I traded books with Michael. I'm like, yeah, we'll trade books. He's like, great. What do you charge for yours? I'm like, this much. He's like, great. Mine is this much. Pay me the difference. And I was like, okay, no, that's fair. That's fair. No, I couldn't complain about it, Michael.
I believe it was, I'll take the rest out of Hyde.
No. You always tell this story this way. That's not how it happened.
How'd it happen?
Then why'd your mom show up there to take the money from you?
Oh, man.
Don't.
With a bat. No. I that was my first convention. I'd never done a book swap before. Travis came up and he said, I'd like to do a book swap. Now, if you're not cool with that, it's totally fine. If you prefer to since your book is more expensive, I can pay the difference. If you prefer that, blah blah blah. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. And I was like, okay, the last one, I guess. And so, so I didn't know. I didn't know.
And by the way, Michael, here's what I'm going to say: you didn't do it wrong. Okay, you didn't do it wrong to ask for that monetary difference.
I didn't ask.
Yeah. Now, if I had said, do you want to do an even book swap? Yeah, might have been a different story. But
Here's
what I'm saying.
I do.
You have a price,
and whatever book it's closest.
You have a price on your book. There is nothing wrong with expecting to get that price. Okay, so this is. I'm not condemning you for that. It's a fun story. But
I didn't do it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going. Great, pay me the $5 difference. It's but right. Yeah, your mom at the bat really was
the ultimate history
over the top. It's So, Mike, you had something to say about the previous conversation too.
Yeah, I haven't found myself in a situation where I've ever traded reviews. It's just I think at most it's and hey, if you enjoyed it, or if you want to leave your thoughts, if you could write a review, that would help. And it's yeah, of course you too. But it was never a contingency of the trade. And I think for the most part, it's fair to what I do now is I'll say I'll wait till the end to trade, so that I can know that I'm in the green, and that I've made back the cost of the table and stuff, because that's you can very quickly get yourself into the red if you give away too much product, and that was something that I did when I was when I first published, when I had my first book ever out, and I was like, hey, check it out. But it's good to make some money and then do some promotional stuff, and not shy away from free promotion, and to embrace local free promotion.
I think that's great advice across the board. Let me tell you what, if you've got your first book and it hasn't been edited, printed, published, it's different to do free work then. Initially, I did a lot of free work in the form of short stories going into other people's anthologies, and that's fine. But if you have gone and paid for...
At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu.
Sling TV, built to save you money and bring you the channels you love, including ESPN, AMC, HGTV, and more. Watch your favorite comedies, dramas, suspense thrillers, news, sports, and more for just $35 a month. And your first month is only $10. Sign up now and start streaming right away on your TV, phone, and tablet. Take control of your TV solution with Sling. It makes TV flat out better. Go to sling.com to sign up now and get your first month for just $10.
An editor and paid for a cover, and whether you print on demand like Amazon or go and buy 100 or 1,000 copies of your own book, not giving away your art, your craft for free is something you should do. Is expect to be paid for the time, energy, and everything you put into that. And for some of us, even now, that's hard to expect somebody to hand you money for something that you did that you loved and enjoyed this much. It's like, give me $1 for a hug. Well, I like hugs. Tempe?
Well, and then you get into the issue too where my first book, I intentionally dropped the price to 99 cents, and I put it on Kindle Unlimited to kind of pull people in for the rest of the series. And I had a couple of remarks well, when's book 2 gonna be 99 cents or free on Kindle Unlimited? I'm like, never, because that's not the point. And I'm like, do you realize what goes into writing a book? How much money I have tied up in this? How much time I have tied up in this? And so, if you don't expect to get paid for your work, and you're just giving stuff away, people are going to expect you to continue to do that. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works. I did that as a promotion to pull you in for the rest of the series.
Aaron?
Well, so I'm hearing a lot of drug dealer level talk here. Okay, never use your own product, as Michael said. Friggin' Tempe. Oh yeah, the first taste is free. No, and that's not a bad thing. It's one of those in the business world we call them loss leaders. Friggin', they don't make any money on a friggin' quarter pounder. They make money on the drink and the fries. There's a reason they go, hey, would you like fries with that? Oh, would you like to pick up book 2 at the same time?
Yeah.
Friggin', yeah, book 1, whatever the series is, assume that book one is the least polished of the series, but it's enough to get you in the door and go, hey, you got any more of them Fen Fei fuckeries?
And that happens all the time because somebody will read the first one and then they'll go buy the next three at the same time. They're like automatically pulled right in with it. So
like your post person.
Yeah, exactly. So but the ones that are like, hey, when is the other one going to be free? I'm like, never. I gotta eat.
Word sums it up nicely with, "This is my job. Give me the money." Yeah, this is our job, and that is a fair point. And anybody who says otherwise. Now, I want to point at John of Conquest Publishing right there, who's viewing right now. He does a ton of stuff for next to nothing or downright free. But in general, it's an exchange. He's right here in this book of Tara's that she published and edited, and there's one of my stories in there. Tempe, do you have one in here?
Which one is that? I can't see
Fare
it.
Thee Well.
No, I have one in the Rogues and Rebels.
Okay, so John has some art in here where John, he was getting something out of the deal, and that's something I'd recommend. If you're getting something for free, try to give him something too. Don't take too much from free. Make sure there is a give and take. Now, Tara, I've seen your face make a few little motions there as we're talking about all this. Do you have some stuff to add?
No, that's the cat.
No. Does the cat have something to add?
No, he was just kind of like coming over and putting his cold nose on my legs. And it's like, what? It's Morven's cat. Morven's in the craft room, kind of with the door closed. So he came in. That's what I had to get up and let him in because he was banging on the door. So he's decided, he was the one that was up in my lap. He's decided he wanted to kind of cuddle on me. And I'm like, okay, if you're not going to settle, you can't. But I agree with most of what y'all have been saying. So
most? Is there something you see differently?
I could see for Tempe. I know right now she's, I'm the hold up on book 5 right now. I've got to actually get over my fear of what's going to happen in the first of it because she gave me a spoiler that I'm like, no. That, when she gets closer to the, it's a long series, that she might decide to say, have book 2 on special or something, or to make the first 4 part of in a package.
A bundle price.
For a slightly, lesser price because by that point they will have been on sale for a while. But the problem with self-publishing is there's been a lot of promotion of the 99 cents on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of readers don't understand is that, they're like, well, it's 99 cents. It's not even a real book. Yeah, but, the author gets like 17 cents mm-hmm. of that 99 cents. Well, Amazon takes most of it. And if you go with Kindle, if you go ahead and you have it on Kindle Unlimited, you're stuck with Amazon being the only platform you can actually have it on. Some people don't realize that. I remember I was at a con and I was just attending and I was walking along, there was authors with their books. And so I just, struck up a conversation with one lady. And she didn't understand why she could only sell her book on Amazon with the ISBN she got from Amazon. And I had to explain to her that it wasn't, that was Amazon's ISBN. No, honey, if you didn't pay $200 for that from Bowker's, it's not your ISBN. So Amazon has changed the landscape for good and for bad. Because the readers are so used to now getting free and 99 cents, and that they expect it from every book. So I know that, Dream Punk Press has some freebies right now. They're older novellas that, we're just offering. And as soon as, the lockdowns end, they won't be free anymore. But it's hard, because you go to offer a free gift for somebody, and they, and in today's world, they want more and they want it free.
Aaron?
Mm-hmm. On that note, in that vein, one of the things that I've said for years is we are not the media's customer, and that's anybody that provides you something for free, whether it's the press, whether it's Amazon offering you the free stuff. When it's offered for free, if they're not making money off of you, from you, they're making money off of you. You became their product. They're selling you to somebody else.
Yes.
More specifically, they're selling access to you to somebody else. Whereas, let's say Tempe's books, they go, oh, she's got these. If she said, okay, I'm going to give them away for free this month, they don't make any money off of that. But what they're going to do is they're going to sell her audience to somebody like her that is making money for them.
Right.
Whether it's the 1999 book or the dollar book. And it really, that's where we run into with like the Big Five and stuff. The Big Five takes 70% of an author's friggin' net or gross. And maybe gives you 30 after they subtract everything, advances and all that stuff. And that's kind of where we run into this. It's not that we're making it, oh yeah, the book's $20, but it cost me $9 to print it. And if I sold it through Amazon, they take another $4.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still making the same as the Big Five.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're still making 25 to 33% off that cover price. Something else, if you're done, Aaron.
No, that's what I have.
Okay. Here's the advice I'll give you. By the way, a couple of comments here. Word says, author I know gives the first book out for free, the second if you do a review, and then you're well invested in series, and there's 11 more. John says, free and nope are both 4-letter words. Here's what I'll tell you, and Tempe, this is not focused at you, it may apply to you, is stop selling your books for 99 cents. Now, that first one for 99 cents to bring them in the rest of the series is good marketing, okay? So that's a different story. But in general, if you have a well-put-together, polished book, stop it. Amazon, and we're going to talk about ebooks in particular here, Amazon has a tool when you're going to publish it, if you're publishing on Amazon, that says, find out what other books like this are selling. And they grab the genre, they grab a couple analytics, mush it up, and tell you what other books like this are selling. Very rarely do you see less than $3.99 for any ebook. Now, in part, this is their business structure going, we want you to sell it for more because we make more. But on the other hand, what do people pay for your average cup of coffee? What do people pay for your average, let me rent a movie at Redbox? Let me rent a movie streaming online is $6 to $20. Okay? That book is going to give you many more hours of entertainment than either that cup of coffee, including going to the bathroom an hour later. And the same with that streaming movie, which gives you 2 hours of entertainment on a long movie. Mark up your own value. Realize the work you put into it.
Well, let me point out, I didn't do that originally. That is something I have done after the book was out for over a year.
Right.
And I would do the 99 cent as a special, usually when I would do an ad drop over with like the Fussy Librarian or something like that. I would put it on sale for the 99 cent. And I did put it back on 99 cent for the COVID stuff.
Sale is
but I
different.
don't normally do that.
A sale is different. And also, when you do have 8 books out, putting the first one on your website for free if they follow your newsletter, that's still a reasonable thing at that point in time. There are reasons where it comes in where you're like, nope, good marketing idea. But in general, advice to people going, I just put everything up for 99 cents. Stop. You're undervaluing your content, your product. And as Aaron says, your book is not Amazon's product. You're Amazon's product. They're selling you. You're doing all the work for them. We're their sweatshop. Which isn't to say you shouldn't use it. Mike?
Yeah, I agree. And Tara had said something where there were comments that she had seen where people said, well, it's not a real book because it's only 99 cents or something.
Yeah.
And it's true. There have been studies where people perceive products as better when they're priced higher, because it evokes value. So it's a matter of, and promotions and stuff is different, and sales are different. But in general, I agree with the idea to, set your margins, decide what you feel is worth the labor and all the time, and let the price be the price, and let your book be valuable.
Aaron?
But on that note, friggin' run it like a business. What's your cost to recoup?
Yeah.
Okay. If I bought a cover art from Michael, friggin', if I bought one like Winslow's cover is amazing.
Nice.
I would pay, for me to friggin' commission him to do that would be $1,500, $2,000 because of the time investment. If I friggin' contacted Tara and say, hey, I need you to edit my book about 100,000 words, she's got a price, okay? And whatever it happens to be, but I add those two numbers together plus my personal time investment, how many copies of my books do I need to make at a 30% margin to break even?
That's exactly right.
And let's say friggin' Tara's doing it at the same price that there's $3,000 right there, and let's say I've personally got $3,000 in it, so there's $6,000 at a $3.99 book. You make a 30% margin, so it's like $1.70, I think, or something.
Ish.
Call it $2 just for 50%.
Sure.
Yeah.
So $2 to get back to $6,000, I have to sell 3,000 copies.
Mhm.
That's a successful book.
Yeah.
I mean, that's break even. Now, friggin' when you've got Tempe's work here, where she's got book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, she can leverage those other books to get back there. Whereas if you got a single book, or friggin' one book in a series, or if you don't have an anchor series, it gets more and more difficult to get up there, especially if you're at 99 cents. Now, if you're selling at 99 cents, not sales, but just in general, you probably don't have the editing, but you've invested in a cover of some type.
You've also invested time. And let's say you want to pay minimum wage. And let's say you wrote it super quick and you did 100,000 words. Let's say you did 1,000 words per hour. You got 100 hours in that. That's $1,000 of your time, which we often forget to include that in the cost.
That is true.
You said at minimum wage, so that's $7,250.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's now we've got 5 minutes left in the creative topic. If I knew then. So besides anything we've said, any other stuff that you just went, oh, if I had known that. Real quick, Aaron.
And this kind of keyed in because I was looking at a couple other things. But incrementalism or incremental changes. Where you start, you're not going to be able to see where you're going. You're going to make, it's a 1% change here, another 1% change here, and it's going to be different. As an example, I got friggin' these X-Men comics here. If you read X-Men #1, it's 5 teenagers trying to save the world. If you read it to now, yeah, the theme is the same, but all the characters are different. The story content's different. And I think Tempe's mentioned it, that she's kind of shifting along hers as things have happened. It's no longer George Washington out there. It's something completely different than what it once was, especially as she gets into book 43 and 44.
Yeah, I started out with more historical with a little bit of fantasy, and now it's when book 6 it's going to be mostly fantasy with a little bit of historical in it. So it'll be a little bit of a shift. So we'll see how it goes over.
Michael, any other thoughts?
I think, always try to achieve a healthy blend of everything, and don't be afraid to try new things. And I think one cool thing that I learned was that, writing is not necessarily as isolating a job as everyone thinks it is, especially now with, things like this and the community we have. And it's a lot like having coworkers. Because I remember thinking how personal and isolating and it is, but it doesn't have to be. And I learned that at my first con when I met Tara and Travis, and it's really, really cool. So it can be whatever you want it to be, and you can pave the way for new things, new exciting things to happen.
Tara?
Even editors need editors when they're writing.
Yes. Yeah.
That's true.
More to add to that, or is that it?
That's it.
Okay, that's because she's an editor. Fucking concise. Part of my language.
A concise sentence.
What I'll say is, you've learned a certain amount, whether it's your first book you're publishing or your 50th. There's more to learn, or there's something to relearn. So no matter how far along you are, just beginning, or on book 5 or on book 50, still take into consideration what you hear from your peers, your audience, and especially your harshest critics. Now take all of it for what it's worth. Don't let it stop you from doing what you love to do. But something I have definitely seen is in the beginning of my writing, when I first started publishing, I remember I had one short story I submitted, and they went, "That's great," but it was a steampunk book. They're like, "It's a bit wordy, and you're using words not everybody gets, and can you change that so it's more understandable language?" And I went, "Oh, they want me to dumb it down."
For 150 years, Children's National Hospital has provided exceptional care and groundbreaking research. Please donate today to give children and healthcare heroes a reason to believe this holiday season. Visit childrensnational.org/holiday.
You know the old saying, selling like hotcakes? What does that even mean? What is a hotcake anyway? They should change it to selling like Hondas, because right now Hondas are selling faster than ever. Probably because they're so rugged, long-lasting, and fuel-efficient. And if you want one, you should get to your local Honda dealer right away. Check out the 8-passenger Pilot, or maybe the adventurous Passport. But you gotta do it fast, because Hondas are selling like, well, Hondas. New models are arriving now. Don't wait. See your local Honda dealer today.
6-7 years later, I'm like, no, I get what they mean. Yeah, they did want me to dumb it down because, like, 2% of readers would get it, and the rest are just like, ugh. Because I can read those same stories now, and if I have republished them somewhere, I have changed it. So when somebody gives you advice on your book, don't think, I know what I'm doing. Go, let me think about it. And say that to yourself, not necessarily them. To them, smile and nod. But in your own head, don't immediately discard that advice and information of somebody, no matter how much or how little they know. Because I see so many people popping in here to my writing streams who have never published, and they're like, well, that's dumb. I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, okay, I said the same thing when I started, and now, guess what? I do that because reasons. That's pretty much it. Keep learning, keep expanding, and keep revisiting things that you discarded before as to see if it's actually feasible. Shall we move into the second hour? Our technical hour? Let's go around and do introductions again for anybody that came in late. I am Travis Sivart. I have written incredible books. Like, here's a fun one that's a short story cycle. Short story cycle being interconnected short stories called The Tridington Birthright. That's a Lovecraftian, Cthulhian type horror with steampunk fantasy in there. I have a bunch of that stuff out, and also I run these shows. So what about you, Michael?
I am an independent author and illustrator. I write all sorts of cool fiction with emphases on humor, adventure, and heart. And my latest one in my kids series is Chicken Boy and the Might of the Monkey Man. Book 4 in the Chicken Boy series. Action, adventure, lots of great comedy, and super cool illustrations. Check it out.
Very good. Tempe?
I am Tempe Wade. I'm the author of the Timely Revolution book series, Revolutionary War Time Travel Adventure series. Books 1 through 4 are out. Book 5 will be out when Tara overcomes her fear and gets the editing done. And I'm also working on a fantasy piece, so we'll see where that one goes.
I'm very interested in that. And Tara?
Hi, I'm Tara Muller. I'm the Dreamer-in-Chief at DreamPunkPress.com. Sorry, I was like, where, what?
Where do I work?
I swear this was not, it was just soda, trust me. At DreamPunkPress.com, we're a small independent publisher based out of Norfolk, Virginia. And our latest release is big release, as in physical release, is Waiting for Normal by Zara Jones. And then we've also got an ebook novella out from the same author called Gamers with a Y. So
there we go. Aaron?
Hi, I'm Aaron Kennedy. I am co-owner of Clouder Consultants. I'm a PhD candidate specializing in business and leadership. I've been a technical writer for about 25 years. I've been published in the Army Times and the NCO Journal. I've also got the book Persona Non Grata out.
Very good. Now, the technical hour topic is who's in charge, which this is, again, one of those wide open topics where people went, what do you mean? And I went, what do you think I mean? And before we got on air, I went, what did each of you think? And they each had something different that keyed up for them. And it was a great variety of things. And again, I encourage you guys, as one person is talking, throw a hand up, or they pause long enough, jump in, throw your 2 cents in to discuss their concept before we move to the next person or whatever. And don't just let me be the only one of you have some thoughts on the idea. So I see a grin on Tempe's face. Can we start with you? What do you think when who's in charge?
Oh, no, I was reading the comment that somebody wrote, George Washington, Dragon Warrior, and Prince of Elves.
I laughed out loud about that one. If you heard me laugh a couple minutes ago, that was Word who...
I'm like, okay, we go from George Washington to Finn Spay fuckery. Which one sounds more interesting?
Mm-hmm.
No, but back to the topic, who's in charge? For me, when you asked it, the first thing that popped into my mind was who's in charge when you're writing. Are you as the writer in charge, or do your characters dictate what you write? And I'm very much, my characters dictate what I write. I have large and in charge characters, so they have explosive personalities, and I just kind of go with them and where I think they might go.
Very good. So do you ever have to rein them in and redirect them?
Oh, I don't rein any of them in, no. The wilder they are, the better.
I really liked your interpretation of this question a lot.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I think that's exactly the way that you should go when you're thinking about writing. And that is an excellent state to be in when you're writing, is to know your characters so well that it should feel like you're just transcribing the scene as it's happening, that you're a reporter, that you're sitting in the corner and you're writing everything down. You're trying to translate that mental experience into words as clearly as possible at the state it happens.
Yeah, and that's very much how it is for me. I've said before, when I write, my stories are like a movie playing in my head, and I'm just writing down what I see. And whenever I've tried to rein something in or change something, it just didn't go well. I'm always better off just to go back to the characters, their initial personalities, and go with, what comes. Go with the flow of it, so to speak.
Yeah. If anything, it's like you may have to let yourself go deeper, even, because especially when something's playing so cinematically, you may have to ask yourself. It's like, okay, what does this place smell like? Because as humans, we're visual, auditory, but then those other senses fade away, especially when something's happening so fast in the mind. So it's like to hone in and look closer mentally,
Yes.
or look, to be closer, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you write it,
Yeah,
Michael?
I think
Sorry, Tar, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think as an author, if you run into that and you don't feel like your characters, that it's flowing out and that your characters are in charge, you don't know your characters well enough and you're going to stumble somewhere. I've had a couple of projects and I'm halfway through and I'm like, okay, it's not working. And it's because I don't know those characters well enough yet. A lot of times you do writing to find the character, to get you to know them. And then all of that writing goes, it doesn't show up in your final book. but it's still valuable because that was the character talking to you. It's you getting to know that character so that they can tell their story through your fingers.
Yeah.
On that note, don't forget that your the situation is a character and the environment is also a character.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, because when we're talking like in the fantasy realms, writing, the world building is an essential part of that. You've got to feel like you're there and that the characters may be working through that story or that situation. And what I did with Persona non grata is I tell the story of Odysseus. I just move it 700 years in the future.
Right.
He is working through the situation, but you got to build the world, you got to build the situation, and then you got this other characters that are manipulating through there. They're navigating it, and that's one of those things. And I think Tippy probably does this well because she's using historical stuff, so she's got this established world that's great, and then she twists it just a little bit, and then she's got the characters maneuvering through it.
And I also have the luxury of having some of the characters who were actually, real people. George Washington's very honorable. Major John Andre was a ladies' man. So I'm able to build off of that. So I kind of I'm ahead of the game a little bit on that one.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then I bet, like, what is it like when you have characters that are real, perhaps, but not a lot is known about them. So then you have your author side come out and then like trickle through, I bet, right?
I did a ton of research, especially like Major Andre and Ben Talmadge. I did a ton of research to find out what kind of people they were. And like I said, I just built on that. And those happened to be people that were well enough known that the information was easy to get. So, but yeah, it was fun. And like I said, I pull it out. John Andre was a notorious ladies' man. I mean, women at his hanging showed up with black dresses and were weeping at his hanging. So, he was very well loved, and he was well loved by both sides. George Washington did not want to execute the man. So
you know why the women were weeping at his funeral or at his hanging?
Well,
because he was so well hung. So, if I may here, Word says, scent is an amazing tool to pull the reader in. Smell brings forth so many associations. It is scientifically proven smell is the sense most strongly associated with memory. So giving somebody a smell they can latch onto in a book, it does open up association very well. A couple other things as you guys were talking. Mike, I meant to comment on this earlier. When you were talking about your books, you said adventure, heart, and what? Was it hope?
Humor.
By the way, I love that description. I think that's a great way to write, is no matter what you're writing, to give it adventure. And for me, the heart and humor, actually I think you said humor and heart, to put it into your phrasing, that draws me in as a reader, because it's the characters that keep me to a book. I have found that as I'm writing, if I don't know a character well, that's what Act 1 is for. Act 1, the first 25% of my book, where I set up this is her daily life, this is what the world looks like before it gets that twist, is when I am getting to know my characters. So, for example, today I was doing the second chapter with a brand new character in the book, and Word was here as I was doing this, and I had like 4 words to describe the whole chapter. And I sat there with 3 paragraphs and I went, I don't know where I'm going now. And I don't know if it was Word, whoever was watching went, what do you mean? It might have been Axel Boost who was in it. I said, what do you mean? Typed in the chat, what do you mean? And I'm like, I plan in the sense that I know the major points in the story, but I never know my ending. I've discovered I never know what Act 3 is, and I don't bother to plot it till I get to it, because I want to see how they get to that darkest moment, to that point where everything is pure crap, and how do they pull themselves out of that hole. I just got to make sure that hole is big enough, deep enough, and interesting enough. So right now in Act 1 with this character, that chapter, sure, I have a couple words that define what I want to see in that chapter, whether it's about the character or about the situation or about the environment, and then I just write. I just turn on that cinematic view in my head and dictate. And I really, if you stop me at any point in time, I will lose where I am because I don't know what's next, except I know what the next line is as I'm writing. I've got one line ahead. And there's other times where I come to a screeching halt and I go, what's next? Well, let's make it interesting. What can I throw on that next sentence that will make the reader go, oh, what's that? Or make me. Screw the reader at that point. I just want to be interested in what I'm writing. I've often found if you get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm bored, your reader's going to be bored too, and you maybe need to shift something up. What's going to catch your interest and make you go, ooh, I want to write more? Or the reader go, I want to read more. Aaron, you raising your hand there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, sorry, Aaron. Notice how many of us, as we're doing the show, have a pen and paper, and we're taking notes so we remember what we want to talk. I see Mike waving his pen around. And go ahead, Aaron.
Something Mike brought up, and freaking you kind of tied into it as well. These characters, like, and the one that instantly popped into my head was Romeo and Juliet. Now, I don't really care about them, but guys like Mercutio.
Oh, yeah.
Friggin', right. Why is he so cool? All right. We know he is. He's got these great pieces of dialogue, and then he dies, and we find out, oh, no, he's related to the prince. Oh, that's a twist that we didn't see before.
Right.
And that kind of led me down to the Fifth Element. I've mentioned that on the show before. It's
Maybe
a great thing because you mentioned the first act.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at the first act of Fifth Element or Star Wars, you would never guess what the third act is going to be from those. We see Luke Skywalker. We see Princess Leia. We see Han Solo. Do we see them in an epic space battle at the very end? Based solely on the first 30 minutes, they're cold open. Whereas Corbin Dallas, everything was telegraphed into him being this badass superhero with a list of credentials and him being the only man for the job, and he never meets the villain.
Huh.
Him and Zorg never meet, which is kind of cool. And it's one of those, going back to what you said about if I know where it's going, I'm getting bored, or if I know what's going to happen. And you look at these and you go, oh, wow, this is kind of the twist, the pulls, and the change-ups in Acts 2 and 3 and so forth. But that kind of led me back to my question of who's in charge. Well, no one's really in charge. I mean, we're the author and we're the one driving this car, but you've got the road, the environment, you've got the situations, the traffic, and all that stuff. And then what I joked about friggin' off air was, who's the boss? Tony Danza or Angela? Who was in charge of that
Are you going into your version of the question at this point?
Well, no, just leading back to that.
Go into that immediately afterwards and just go into what you thought of, if you would. Continue.
Okay. Yeah, the who's in charge thing, it's one of those, it depends. It really depends on what's going on. I mean, we write to market because we want to sell books. So the customer has got a piece of that pie. They're a stakeholder. Our characters, they've got to be true to themselves, so they're a stakeholder. We're the author. We're trying to make money, so we're a stakeholder. Then you got the publishing company. They want to make money. They're a stakeholder. And you've seen shows that are kind of built around that philosophy. Whereas Saturday morning cartoons, they were, not that they exist anymore, but they were there to sell toys. And they were written as such. But merchandising.
Originally, they were
that kind of
prime-time television that got converted to Saturday morning cartoons. Mm-hmm. Flintstones and Jetsons. And so, when you first heard this topic of who's in charge, what was your thoughts that you mentioned before the show started?
Okay.
You didn't write that down in your notes, did you?
Hey, no. No, I wrote down the Tony Danza thing because it's one of those, not everybody's, it depends on what you're trying to do at any given point as to who's going to be in charge of this piece, because you walk into a meeting, yeah, the CEO's in charge, but if he says, okay, we're going to order food for everybody, come to a consensus, and now friggin' Karen from friggin' accounting is in charge because she wants friggin' chicken and everybody else wants pizza because she's just stopped this meeting. even though he said, okay, I've made an executive decision, but I don't know where we're going from this point.
I quite liked your car metaphor that you mentioned like real briefly. And you said
the driver?
Yeah, like the author's the driver, and then I was thinking like where do other people fall if it is like navigation, if it is like going on a trip, then I do think that the author has the wheel, and then perhaps your characters are giving you the directions, and then perhaps your reader is the person in the back seat. Maybe they're the one who gets to like sit back and experience it.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Or you try to entertain by picking license plates.
Try to be a backseat driver and tell you, it's like, no, don't go there.
Yeah.
And then
and your editor is your GPS.
There you go.
And then your publisher is your car manufacturer and gas stations.
Yeah.
Who go, you can't go there. There's no other gas stations. You'll never make it.
Never tell me the odds.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, do you have more to add to that before we grab the next person?
No, that was just kind of where my friggin' spiraling mentality of whatever database shoved in here went.
So we got 15 minutes out of Tempe's point of view. We got 2 out of yours. Damn it! But
that's all.
We have more of us to talk about. So, Michael, since you were talking, hold on. Always that one character that's the wobbly tire.
Hey, they're great for a detour.
That's true.
That's so, Michael, when you heard who's in charge, you were actually the one that asked me for clarification. I went, it's individual. So what was your thought?
So my first thought was whether was about the product, and whether you as the author or what you perceive your readers may want to get would determine where you go in your production phase. So that was where my mind went initially.
So you want to expand on that and then go to point 2, or you want to put point 2 out there and then go to both?
I'll just say that I think it's probably a little. I wouldn't mind hearing what you guys think if you have thoughts on it, but I think it's probably a little of both. But at the end, it's mostly what your heart is singing about the most. Whatever is like gasping to get out of you the most. It would probably be bad for you to not tend to that, and there's probably a reason for that. So that's sort of what I think. That it's a little of both. It's good to keep in mind, but at the end of the day, whatever's happening up here, since you already have the benefit of it happening here, you might as well get it down on the page. So what do you guys think?
You can do some of that stuff in the background, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Put it down on page, but that doesn't mean that it can't be edited out and saved for later, or becomes back things. What's his face? I wanted to say L. Ron Hubbard, but it's not L. Ron Hubbard. It's freaking Lord of the Rings guy.
Tolkien.
Thank you. J.R.R. Tolkien. Freaking, it's got the initials in the front.
Yeah.
You've got The Hobbit. The Hobbit's a short story. It's freaking that thick. It's a fast read. And then you see Lord of the Rings, which is... and then he pulls out all the stuff that he yanked out of that. And you get other books. Because that's where the editing happened. But it's all this world-building stuff that's going on. So it's one of those, okay, well, which parts was he in charge of? Which parts were other folks kind of involved in this, whether it was his editor, whether it was his publisher, whether it was guys like me who were watching the movie going, oh my God, why did they add this back? Or what the hell has this got to do with it? On the flip side of this is they're trying to build this world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't... Go ahead, Tower. Go.
I think...
At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu. At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu.
When you talk about, for an author, whether you stay true to, the idea that you're in charge, so it is your story, you tell the story the way you want, or if you account for an audience. I think the author has to tell this story the way they want to tell it, their story, and not worry about the audience. Because you're not going to, it's not going to be your story if you're sitting there thinking, oh, well, the audience, my audience won't like this. My audience isn't going to like this character. One, you don't know. And two, if you start changing your characters in order to appease somebody, that's the same as you changing yourself to appease somebody, and you're not going to be happy, you're going to be miserable, and the story's going to be crap because you're not. So, and I think when you tell your story, your audience is going to find you, the audience that wants your story. Dreampunk Press has a book out called Spork, written by Mix Know-It-All, who was not yet 18 when they wrote it. They actually, thank you, Travis. You've got all of them. That's great.
Nice.
And that one actually, that young author actually almost had an agent. But the agent said, hey, there's not enough angst in that story. It's the story about a young man who is maliciously outed as gay and who starts questioning his sexuality. Does he actually, is he actually gay or is he not? And then there's no real true resolution to it because he's 15. But the story didn't require angst. The angst was a different
sounds like the angst was the
relationship.
environment.
His parents, and yes. And the young author decided they did not want to make those changes because it would no longer be their story. Mm-hmm. To appease the publisher, as the agent said, it's LGBT. They would want the angst. They're not publishing cute little stories like this yet. Well, it's for middle grade. It's for 12 and 13-year-olds to read who may be questioning their own identity, sexuality, whatever. And I don't think they need the angst. It's when folks read that book, they absolutely love it. I know a lot of parents read it and then they actually hand it over to their kids to read because there's, it's a very hopeful book. So I think that the author has to be true to themselves, not always worry about the audience and what a publisher wants. If you worry too much about what that publisher wants, it's not your writing.
That's very smart.
Hold on, Tempe had something before you, Aaron.
Oh, yeah.
I'm agreeing with Tara there. I tell people all the time, writers don't write for publishing companies. Writers don't write for the audience. Writers write for themselves. If you happen to like it or love it, that's great. But, it's not written specifically for you. That's the author's story. And, maybe why I'm not sitting on the New York Sellers best-selling list right now. But, if you've got a story that needs to then get it out. Don't change it because for what somebody may or may not like. It's your story. Why should you change it for somebody else?
Aaron?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of keyed into when she was talking about publishers and I think producers, because a lot of times I'll swap between the movies, the comics, the books, because they're all
storytelling,
entertainment genre.
Yeah.
So how many good books have we read that turned into just horrible movies? Don't get me wrong, I'd sell out in a heartbeat. Friggin' if they offered me a check, oh yeah, no problem, I'll sell you the rights. That is me pimping my wares. Thank you very much. And I can assure you Travis would do the same.
Absolutely.
But you take a look at, and I'm going to use books as an example. We got Aragon. Aragon's a pretty decent book series. The movie is horrible. This isn't to make fun of it. I mean, it's got a great cast, it's got great potential, and it just falls flat because they tried to tailor it to what they thought a movie audience would like. Now, another one that's coming out now is Artemis Fowl. It's a great book series. It's middle grade, children's to middle grade, and it became when you watch the previews, it ain't the same story. But they can also do some things better in some ways. Harry Potter, the books are amazing. The movies are good in their own right. They deliver what you expect, but they stay true.
Yeah.
True-ish. Thematically true.
Okay, thematically true, yes. I have issues with the movies because I loved those books. But
Everybody does. But it's one of these things. Would you want imagine you've got a movie producer coming to you and going, okay, hey, your book is great, but we want to convert it to a movie, and this is the script they're going to hand you. Yeah. Would you sell the rights? That's really the question you got there.
I said all along with mine that if I ever sold the rights to it, that I would have to be involved with the series or the movie or whatever, because these characters are like my children, and if you screw them up, I have issues. We have issues.
See, and I've got a different response in regards to children. I go, how many zeros?
Okay.
Look, it's my ultimate plan to get to Henry Cavill. I'm just saying.
For Henry.
That's a few zeros. I believe that's 6 or 7 of them.
That's a title for the adaptation episode of Right Night, Holding Out for Henry.
Holding out for Henry.
So if I can add a few thoughts to what each of you have said on this topic. And by the way, a few comments. John of Conquest Publishing says there are up to 7.8 billion waiting for your story. And then Word says, if I only could get a penny from each. That's the truth. Okay, a couple thoughts here. Michael, you mentioned you got to write what's gasping to get out of you. Usually for me, that's a swear word. So, yeah, they are in one of my books. I like to think of, when it comes to writing, and then you move to editing, and you move to an agent, and you move to a publisher, each step along the way is a writing partner, depending where you're looking to go. And I look at my editor, a good editor to me, and I'm speaking of Tara specifically at this point in time, the feedback she gives me, and she's done it for free, and now she's doing it for money. When I say she's done it for free, when she first went, can I re-edit the first couple pages of your book? And she did, 10 chapters or 500,000 words or whatever she did. That's when I went, a good editor is a writing partner. That is somebody that looks at your work and, John, you have a great night. Drive safe. We'll catch you again next time.
Bye, John.
A good editor strengthens your work, tries not to change your voice, but points out what their education, what their experience gave them to help you. And hopefully an agent, the same thing. What we have to remember about editors, agents, publishers, etc., is they're looking to make money. And with their experience, that's what they're trying to give you so they can make money off of you. They're not looking to destroy your story. Now, that doesn't mean their opinion is what you want to hear. And Tempe, you absolutely have the right to say, no, I'm not going to work with you. I don't want to make those changes. But also, Aaron is looking at it from much more business point of view. You're looking from your heart. It's much more of an emotional point of view instead of that logical point of view. And both are valid. Neither one is the wrong answer, which is, again, I will say this repeatedly as we all hang out over the length of the show tonight and many, many nights to come, is both are valid. There's not a wrong answer here. And this is what I want people to see is we might not agree on all the things, but that doesn't mean anybody's wrong. And it doesn't mean anybody's 100% right. The comment about audiences, if they don't like it, Tempe, this was a little bit on what you're saying. Tara kind of covered it. If you don't write for your current audience, there are other audiences out there. And what your current audience might go, well, I don't like that. there is another audience out there going, thank God I found this. So it is out there. We are our first reader. Stephen King, in his book on writing, Memoirs of the Craft, says, write for your first reader, which he doesn't call himself. He uses his wife. That's his first reader. He is writing for her as he puts the words down. What will entertain her? What will make her go, I like this. I want to read more. And whatever that person is, okay, Word, hopefully you can stick around. Word's having thunderstorms. But with those audiences, you pick your first person that you're writing for. And maybe it's just you. Maybe it's an age group. Maybe it's the money. And you incorporate whatever tools you can gather for that audience to make it appealing for them. I agree, by the way, the bottom line is write for yourself too. Put the story you want out there. Now, to shape it, to form it, to edit it, to mold it into something appealing to your target is very acceptable. But I tried writing erotica. I did not enjoy it at all. And I did not get an audience. So I went, screw this. But frankly, if I was making $10,000 a month selling porn, I would write more porn so I could write the other stuff I really want to write until that takes off.
That's fair.
Instead of writing porn, I work a day job. So, that makes the money. The last thing I wanted to say is talking about books to movies and angst. Has anybody read or watched the Amazon TV series The Expanse?
No.
Okay. Good books. I'm up to like book 3 or 4 via audiobook, and a good series. But what I've seen in the series, if they are constantly putting extra friction in the series, extra people bumping heads, they've changed things from the book to create more drama and more grinding and tension and whatnot. And I understand what they're doing in the TV series. Was that a sneeze? Bless you if it was. Okay.
Bless you.
And this is, Word says Expanse is good stuff. We were talking about it earlier when I was on. And it is. And I think the key with that, just to give a quick sideline, is accept the book as one person's point of view and the TV series or the movie as somebody else's point of view. It's kind of like hearing a song that's been sung by 5 different people. We can go with how many people have done White Christmas. And you can enjoy different versions of the same song. Or you could like only one and hate all the others. It's okay. Somebody else is going to have a different point of view, and somebody else is going to appreciate that. I love The Expanse because the characters did gel so well. They fought. They bumped heads in the beginning, but then they came together and moved forward together. And though they, bump up against each other once in a while, in the TV series, it's fucking constant. Killing me out there. But I understand the marketing value of that. And that's something with our work. We get to choose right now if we expand to an agent or a publishing house or a film producer. It becomes a compromise because it's now their project in addition to yours. Aaron? And then Michael. You're muted, Aaron. Aaron.
Can't hear you.
You're muted. Your red light's on. Pressure control.
There we go. I heard something. Well, no.
No. There.
How about now?
Yes.
There we go.
Repeat that.
Sorry about that. It was reversed on the screen. So you had made a comment about writing partner. We're making these people our writing partners, and the thing that instantly keyed into me, and this is probably true for Tara as well, writing by committee. Yeah, there's the eye roll. Well, she's seen it from technical writing. What happens is, you're in charge of chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and then you've got to merge these different views into this one thing that never works without like a showrunner or a good editor. And sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's not. But if you go, okay, well, hey, I've got to get all these stakeholders back in here, and it's you got that thing, and then you had actually commented on the different views. I'll write I will write that $10,000 thing so I can write the stuff I really want to. John Malkovich has got a great quote in regards to Con Air. Hey, sometimes you do these movies so you can do the other movies you really want to do.
Right.
Yep. There are the movies that they do to pay the bills, and there are the movies that they do because they're passion projects. And actors flip back and forth between the two. They'll go do Broadway because they like doing Broadway, but they friggin' do silly movies because they pay.
Right.
And there's some trade-offs there that we as business people have got to remember. Now, writing by committee, I will twitch because if we're going to make a writing partner, make them a partner and keep them there. But the second you bring in another person, you all three have got to be on the same page. Otherwise, you end up with
crap.
Well, the pilot episode, which was okay, turning into something that's completely different on episode 2.
Yeah, I've seen that.
You're talking relationships, yes. And the relationship between two people is very different than the relationship between those two people and another person. And, it's really so very similar.
Well, there's 6 relationships. When you get to 3 people, there's 6 relationships now, not 3. Because you each have a relationship with each other. 2 of you have a relationship with another person, and vice versa as it rotates around. It's like a family dynamic. When you talk about system thinking, it's all family dynamics. How we each interact in this 5-person group is different than how me and Travis interact, or how me and Tempe interact, or vice versa, or combined together moving. And the writing process, you got to be careful as an author not to let those relationships spiral out of your control. If you can control it, hey, I've got a great editor, we work great together, and now I've got a great publisher, and we work great together. But if it's one of those, okay, well, I can't quite get it to that next stage to meet my goal, whatever that is. I love this, and I want to meet Henry Cavill, or I love this, and I want to make a lot of money so I can meet Henry Cavill. Those all work.
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Going off of the adaptation thing that Tempe mentioned, when a work is going into a new medium, I think it's, some people maybe have an idea about your work that might blow your mind. So it might be worth it to like have those conversations and stick around. Even if Henry isn't involved yet. But
I have a part.
I
have a part for him.
Oh, you got a part.
I got a part for him.
But what's interesting about it's a whole different style of writing too, because with TV there's so many cliffhangers, because they have to write for the commercials. So there's these peaks in the story, and stuff like that. So all sorts of different methods of storytelling, and I think this would be a great topic for a show, especially one to have Elizabeth on as well.
Mm-hmm. So who hasn't expressed their ideas on who's in charge? Who I forget who we've Tara.
Tara.
Let's go to Tara.
Okay, so when I saw that who's in charge, since I work as an editor, I immediately went to that with the fact that an editor always has to remember that the author is in charge. The editor, like I said, when we were talking about the analogy of the author being, you're in a car and the author's driving. And that's why I said that, the editor is like the GPS. It's helping the author get there. Hey, this is a little vague here. You need to, add some things here. Hey, this is confusing. And just making sure, depending on the type of edit, if you're involved with a developmental, when you're talking the plot, the characters, etc., onto, your copy edit, when you're actually looking at the words used. The editor's there to help guide the author into telling the author's story the best way that they can.
Makes sense.
And I've been at some, long before I published my first book, I had been going to conferences and workshops, and at a couple of the last ones before I decided to self-publish, I really determined that was probably the way I was going to go, because too often these agents and editors were there was like, well, it's my way or the highway, and I'm like, but it's not your story.
Yeah.
And that really turned me off of traditional publishing, because it's my story. And when they're looking and they're saying, oh, well, you have to take the church bits out of it, and I'm like, why? People go to church.
Yeah.
I'm not promoting, the church in it. It's they go on Sunday. And in fact, my character in it is kind of, I got to go to church with my parents again. But I don't know why, a regular secular novel can't at least have, the character having to go to church with their family on Sunday. Or the idea of having to add even more angst over, determining what your sexuality is. So there's a lot there that when I edit, it's why when I give it back with the red lines, I always say, these are my suggested edits. And if you have any questions about why I changed something, talk to me, because my suggestion might not be what you want as an author, but you have to understand why I thought it should be changed, because then it's like, oh, okay, I see why, but that doesn't go. So how about, you could do something else.
Yeah.
So as, and having both sides, and then, of course, with my technical editing, the colonel's in charge. It's not the author, it's not the editor, it's the colonel. That, writing by committee thing, there's the chair.
Well,
So
on that point, he's the one signing it, which means he agrees with everything in it.
he agrees with everything. And
At Capella University, you're in control of your education. With the game-changing FlexPath format, you can set your own deadlines and move at your own pace. The faster you move, the more you save. Visit capella.edu to learn more. At Capella University, you're in control of your education. With the game-changing FlexPath format, you can set your own deadlines and move at your own pace. The faster you move, the more you save. Visit capella.edu to learn more.
he likes all the words. So, but the idea for the editor is it's not the editor's project. The editor is simply there as support, as guide, as, kind of a tool for the author to use. So as the author sees, again, the editor, and the editor has to recognize their role.
Aaron?
On that note, what you're describing is you are a writing partner. You are not a writing gatekeeper.
Yes.
So, and this is something that we as authors have got to understand. Who are gatekeepers that we have to appease? Who's blocking that door that we've got to get through to get to the next step to our goal? Who are our writing partners or our dungeon party that is going to help us get through those doors, this proverbial labyrinth that we've got to navigate?
Also, I think it's, to add to what Aaron's saying and then let him go on, I think it's important to realize what your goals are before you hand that completed work to anybody else. If it is to make money, then you're going to be more lenient with those gatekeepers and allow them a greater influence, control, etc. If you're writing for you, then fuck them all. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Aaron,
Well,
go on.
and on that note, friggin', we get farther by making more people happy. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be a trade-off there of like, oh, okay, I can make this gatekeeper happy, but it's one of those. If you start the dungeon with $100, and at the very end you're going to make 1,000. Well, you got to make it through each of those gatekeepers. Oh, this one wants $10. The next one wants 10. Well, by the time you've hit the 10th gatekeeper, you got no money and you can't get to the 1,000.
And you stop for lunch.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's and kind of what Tara you were mentioning, angst a lot. And I remember that there was a period of time when that was really popular, but it was a period of time. It doesn't necessarily last forever. It's a trend.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
Like mermaids.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily last forever. So and I'm a goal of an author. Depending on the author, but like a big goal I think is to make something that can last forever.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Now, any final thoughts on this before we let Michael go with his thoughts on who's in charge? Or Michael, did we already?
I already did. Barry spoke.
Who didn't? Did we cover everybody?
I think that
covered
was
everybody.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
good. Well, any final thoughts on this before I put in my who's in charge? Aaron, go.
Got one other one.
Go ahead.
Because Michael mentioned this one was adaptations and commercial breaks and cliffhangers and things like that. Whatever our goal is, we want to keep that person to keep reading and whatnot. So the commercial breaks, the cliffhangers there, something that Travis said that I did well in my book was I end early.
the chapter where to start a new chapter.
Exactly. I end before the resolution, so they want to pick the book back up. Which is a smart thing in serial TV because, the commercial goes up, I go get a soda or a beer, and then I never go back to it because I've lost interest. Or, do I want to find out what's happened there? Adaptations are the same way. They're new and interesting ways to do something we've seen before, the twist on it. A TV show that did a great job on this was The Magicians. It was thematically similar. You hit all the beats as you're going along. The story's not precise, but it's good. And I know Tara's got problems with Harry Potter, but it hits the beats for the most part. It tells the same story. It's an adaptation. Whereas the Lord of the Ring movies, they're also an adaptation. I don't think they tell the story as well as The Hobbit did. Or, excuse me, sorry, Lord of the Rings did it better than The Hobbit did.
Right.
Well, The Hobbit had to expand so much and had to add stuff in order to become 3 movies, whereas The Lord of the Rings had to cut to contain itself to 3 very long movies.
Okay,
and these are important pieces of...
Yeah.
Because what was it? Jackson said that when he went in there, he briefed 2 movies to begin with. And they go, well, it's 3 books, why not 3 movies? And he was like, oh my God, that's great. Whereas when you go in there with The Hobbit's a short book. A lot happens in it.
Okay, you know what? With The Hobbit, they could have put Tom Bombadil in and cut out some of that other crap, okay?
I absolutely agree.
I'm just saying. It could have done...
I think what happened with The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings was so successful, and it was 3 movies.
Yeah.
And so when they came in with Hobbit, which should have been 1 movie.
Or 2, at most.
Or 2, but for the content.
Yeah.
It did not need to be, so they had to expand. They had to add stuff and draw things out, I think.
They did, but part of the problem they had is The Hobbit doesn't have any good breaking points.
Right.
Whereas within books and things like that, and going back to the commercial thing, where do you break it into 2? Or, we can definitely break it into 3 because 3 things happen there. They go, Smaug, and the armies. The problem is, the armies is this long in the book as compared to friggin' Smaug and getting to him.
Right.
And that's all that trade-off of, how do we make this work?
Here's what I'll do, guys. I'm going to interrupt this and bring us back on thing, but I wrote down a future topic of best and worst book adaptations.
Cool.
Yes.
So I think that is a great thing that we can discuss in a later show. My thoughts on who's in charge is very layered. And it kind of goes through everything you guys said. You guys definitely added things that I hadn't thought of. But in general, in the beginning, who's in charge? It's you. And here's what I'll say. The short version of this is you're in charge of what you can control. That's you. That's the only thing you're in charge of. You. I feel a good author does let his characters get a life of their own, get a mind of their own, and help guide and direct how things go. And this is the balance between a pantser and a plotter. And I think it needs to be a balance. I think too far one direction or the other, and you cut things and lose things that might have made it a stronger story in either extreme. Now, that isn't to say it can't absolutely work with a total plotter or a total pantser, because there are definitely some successful authors out there that are extreme in one direction or the other. But I think in general, a balance. So you're in charge of you every stage of the way. When you're writing, you're in charge of the writing. First and foremost, Write. Sit down. Put it down. Put it on the page. However you put it on the page is up to you, and it doesn't matter. You're in charge of you. Sit down and write. Then let the characters take over, or plot out that world so much the characters have to weave throughout your obstacles, however you're going to do it. Once you're done with that and you go to your editor, first of all, you're in charge of the editor you choose. And we forget that. We pay somebody, we go, well, we're stuck with this person. No, you're not. You might have lost that money, but you can go to another editor and hand them either...
Sunken cost bias.
Right. It's part of the curve. When you're starting a business, you're going to have certain losses. If you're opening a restaurant, you have to pay for that furniture. That's money that you're not going to have to spend for a certain amount of time because you have those products, those items. Just like when you're buying your computer or whatever program you're going to use, or whatever bobblehead you put behind you on the shelf to keep you entertained when you need a moment to look away. That's all. But once you're with an editor, working with them, compromising with them. There's times I go back to Tara, and I did this with the latest book. I'm like, what else? And she's like, nothing. I'm like, what about this? And she's like, maybe. Let's talk about that. And this is where you're in control. I wanted more out of my editor, so I rattled her cage. And if I ever work with an agent, I want the same thing. I want a relationship. I want to give and take. I want to realize they have a certain amount of knowledge and experience that I don't, and I don't fucking want that experience and knowledge. I want them to do that job, not me. But I have to be able to work with them, and they have to be able to placate me and explain to me why that thing needs changed or why that's important to add this. And then the same thing with the publisher or a producer if you go into a movie or a TV show. And everywhere along the way, who's in charge is you're only in charge of you. If you don't like the person you're working with, you're still enough in charge to go, I'm done. Until you sign that contract, then you're stuck in that. But you were in charge of you signing that. Yeah. So, it changes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Aaron, Michael, one of you?
I just want to hit on a couple things you said. Friggin', you are in charge of what you can control. This is brand. This is, hey, I am my brand. My books are part of my brand. What do I want to be out there? This is business decision of, hey, Coca-Cola, friggin' Disney, friggin' keep that stuff on lockdown. Friggin', and they go, okay, this is the brand that we are going to present. All the way down to the movies they pick, to the colors in their theme parks. This is where we go. The only thing they don't control is the economy, and I'm not so certain about that. Up until friggin' this, Disney had been closed, I believe, 1 or 2 days, and it was September 11th was one of them. Because they control, we're always open. It's like friggin' Quickie Mart. They don't shut down because that's part of their brand. It's a place that people can visit. And that's really there. And then the sunken cost bias. Just because you already have X amount invested in this doesn't mean you can't just release that. Oh, you know what? This was a bad decision. The furniture I picked up from my restaurant, this sucks. I need new furniture. Get rid of it and realign your brand to what you want it to be.
And I have thrown pretty much completed books out the door before because I went, just not good. Tara, you mentioned doing that earlier where you were halfway through something and you just ground to a halt. And yeah, that is time and money thrown out the door, but that's part of the curve. That's part of the business. That's part of the process. Anybody have some other thoughts? We've got about 5 minutes left here on what I said or anything else at this point. Michael?
I think y'all have hit on sort of what connects both of these themes, which is visualization and actualization. And in this topic, it's about what does the book want to be, and then how do you actualize that? And then in the previous topic, it's what type of artist do you want to be, and how do you actualize that? What ratios and what knobs do you turn to get the right balance of the type of artist or the type of art that you're trying to actualize? So as you two were talking, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. So it's about the visual.
And I wrote that down as a topic too, visualization to actualization. That's a good technical topic for a night. And something you guys will see as we do more and more shows, you will see things repeated. Like, for example, the opening hour of this, because it's worth talking about again, whether it's because we've changed or because we have new viewers, or just saying it again is worth saying again.
Yeah.
So yeah, Michael, I wrote that down. That's a good topic right there. Look at you, came up with 2, and I know you have another one. I'll ask you after the show what that one was. You mentioned it. I didn't write it down. So, closing thoughts, anybody? Tempe?
No.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
No, not at all.
Just kind of zoned completely
Henry
out.
Cavill, right her.
Oh, there we go. I could talk about that for another hour.
He has an open invitation for this show whenever he wants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have a part for him when this book series gets made into a series.
And there's
Got
even
the
a part in the
perfect
book,
part for him.
too. So, Tara,
I
any
know
close...
who I'm rooting for him to play.
I think it's probably the same one.
I had thought of something. What was it? Because Travis, when you brought up, agents and publishers, and that, we should all, everyone, the author, the editor, the agent, everybody should be on the same team. And I think one of the ways to do that is make sure that your goal as an author is the same as, or at least aligns with, the goal of your agent and then the editor and the publisher.
Right.
And by that, it's all, and I don't talk about the money. I don't mean, because everybody needs to get paid so they can pay their rent, buy their groceries, pay the electric bill. But I mean the
vision?
the end game for the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What, hey, is it a romance? Okay, well, that's, this is kind of the way that a romance works. If it's, and I'm going to kind of harken a little bit on LGBT, because that's a Dream Punk Press. Right. One of our priorities is good, unangsty LGBT stuff. Unangsty. Is that there's a type of LGBT book which is for those that are struggling with their sexuality, to help them understand that struggle is okay, to recognize, and for somebody who is maybe who is straight to read and understand the struggles that somebody who is on that LGBT spectrum would kind of suffer through because of society. That is one goal, vision for a type of book, which is, I think, when I talked about sport before, what the agent was looking for, which was not the vision of our young author, which was something sweet and innocuous and affirming for somebody, some young person who is questioning but doesn't know yet, because you don't know until you don't know at 15, you don't know at 18, you may not know at 50.
Correct.
So, and that was their vision for the theme, or the takeaway from that novel, and that did not match what the agent and what publishers were looking for at that time, which is one of the reasons that Dream Punk Press took it, because it aligned so completely with what we wanted. Yeah. And by that, I mean, and that's what I mean, why everybody has to have that same goal. Everybody has to have that same end game, not necessarily because everybody needs the money, and that shouldn't be it, but the idea of the message that the book, that niche that it's filling, everybody has to be on the same page.
Well, it's a pillar. It's a pillar of the building that you're doing. Don't get me wrong, money is one pillar. Friggin' the major thematic issues that you're discussing is another pillar. It's like sci-fi novels. Friggin' we've got, Bain does sci-fi and fantasy. Friggin' that's their niche. Dream Punk's niche, as you described. Ships of Valor's military, sci-fi-ish novels, or friggin' Valor books, excuse me. Travis got his niche, and we're all kind of working it to where we got these pillars that work for us.
Any other closing thoughts? Shall I play the music?
Music.
Play the
Very
music.
good. Guys, thank you for joining us as viewers, as listeners to the podcast. Don't forget you can listen to the podcast afterwards or the highlight here on twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk. And if you're catching us on a podcast, feel free to go to that same place and catch us live and interact with us. Have a great night, guys. We'll catch you next week. Let's get an outro.
Thank you for joining author Travis I. Sivart and the other writers, content creators, and all-around amazing people for our discussion here on Night. Join us again soon, and until you do, make sure you create with passion.
Night, Tracy.
Enjoy the journey, and remember, every night can be right one.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
'Tis the season for those irresistible ginger thins, cozy blankets for cuddling by the fire, and making home warm and welcoming. For one-stop holiday shopping, visit your local IKEA or IKEA-USA.com/holiday.